Lucy, how you doing? All right?
A door key handy.
Yes, I do.
Oh my God.
Yes, I do.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. I think I've switched on yet. That's it. Good morning and a Merry Christmas to you all.
Merry Christmas.
And partly by way of intimation, I should say, but partly as a welcome as well. We are for the first time, second time.
This is the proper first time.
The proper first time. We're actually live streaming the service to whoever's out there in the world around us, which is a great thing. And so I'm not only welcoming you this morning, but I'm welcoming any who are watching and listening and joining us at home, which is terrific. And I hope the people at home will feel every bit as welcome and as part of this service on Christmas Day here at St. Margaret's. The other intimation to make this morning is that last night, after the midnight, there was a collection for Pauline Hoey, who does lots of good work in the Glen with the homeless people. And £200 was raised for that last night, which is a terrific amount of money. Absolutely great. So, it's great to see so many here. I think we should have Christmas Day on a Sunday every year. Because often on Christmas Day, there's a smaller number. It's great to see you all here this morning. Before we actually start the service, I'm really anxious to see or hear what folks have got for Christmas. Nothing. See me up. What about you girls?
I've got a Digigo.
You've got a
Digigo phone.
A Digigo phone. Can I see it a minute? Well, I'll tell you, come out here. Hold it up so everybody can see it. Wow. A Digigo phone. I've not got a clue what it does.
There's a little game thing, do learning games on it, and you can send messages to select.
Remember, select. Yeah. What have you got? Tracing board. You want to hold it up and let folks see it? Yeah. Pink's the colour of this.
Definitely.
Great. What about the young green shields here? What do you have, Sarah? Can you say that again? Got a Nintendo? Right. Games. No, I just got one of those. Yeah. What about you? Right. Good. Anyone else? Any of the adults?
I'm wearing blue.
You're wearing blue. Yeah, good. Yeah, excellent.
Very short, my granddad.
Good. Any of you still to open presents?
I got that from.
Yeah, you've all got a lot of you, like us, yeah. Sorry, Mona.
I got that beautiful cross from Heather.
Oh, yeah, good. It's one of these things you can hold in your hand.
Exactly. I had it
Just
in my hand
fits.
this morning, saying prayers, and I just didn't want to give it up. It was just once you got
Yeah,
it
yeah.
there, it just.
I've got one at home. It's great, yeah. Good. Great. Right, we're here to worship, so let's take a few minutes just to think about that, to think why we're here, and have a word of prayer together. Let's just have a word of prayer. Light looked down and saw darkness. I will go there, said light. Peace looked down and saw war. I will go there, said peace. Love looked down and saw hatred. I will go there, said love. And so it was. The Lord of light, the Prince of peace, the King of love, came down and crept in beside us, here and now. Amen. We're going to sing several carols this morning. Let's sing our first one. Hymn 313, See in Yonder Manger Low.
See yonder
to know there's no sermon as such this morning. What I've done this last 2 or 3 Christmases, and some of you I know are here every Christmas, I've told a story. Because Christmas, after all, is a time for storytelling, is it not? So I'd like you to try and imagine. I've been trying to do this more and more recently, particularly with biblical texts, to try and imagine being there in the midst of the story. This one is entitled Joseph's Letter Home, and that's exactly what the story is about. He decides, having gone off with Mary and now with the young infant, he decides to write to his mother back home. And this is what he wrote. Hi, Mum. We're still in Bethlehem. Mary and I, and now the baby, who we've called Jesus. There were lots of things I couldn't talk to you about last summer. You wouldn't have believed me then, but maybe I can tell you now, and I hope you understand. You know, Mum, I've always loved Mary. You and Dad used to tease me about her when she was still a girl. She and her brothers used to play on our street. Our families would meet for supper. But the hardest day of my life came scarcely a year ago, when I was 20 and she was only 15. You remember that day, don't you? The trouble started after we were betrothed and signed the marriage agreement at our engagement. That same spring, Mary had left abruptly to visit her old cousin, Elizabeth, in Judea. She was gone for a whole 3 months. And after she got back, people started wondering out loud if she was pregnant. It was cloudy the day when I finally confronted her with the gossip. Mary, I asked at last, are you going to have a baby? Her clear brown eyes met mine, and she nodded. I don't know what to say. Who? I finally managed to stammer. Who? Mum, Mary and I have never acted improperly ever since becoming engaged. Mary looked down. Joseph, she said, there's no way I can explain. You couldn't understand. But I want you to know that I've cared for you always. She got up and gently took my hand in hers, kissed each of them as if it were the last time she would ever do that again, and then turned towards home. She must have been dying inside. I know I was. The rest of the day I stumbled through my work. It's a wonder I didn't hurt myself in the workshop. At first I was angry and pounded out my frustrations on the door frame I was making. My thoughts whirled so fast I could hardly keep my mind on anything. At last I decided just to end the marriage contract with a quiet divorce. I loved her too much to make a public scene. I couldn't talk to you, Mum, or Dad, or anyone for that matter. I went to bed early and tried to sleep. Her words came to me over and over again. I've never cared for anyone but you. I've never cared for anyone but you. How I wished I could have believed her. I don't know when I finally fell asleep, Mum, but when I did, I had a dream. A very vivid one, in which a messenger from God spoke to me. I'm certain of it, for his words pulsated through my mind so intensely, I can remember them as if it were yesterday. Joseph, son of David, he thundered, do not fear to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. I couldn't believe my ears, Mum. This was the answer. And then he continued, she will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. The angel gripped my shoulders with his huge hands, and for a long moment his gaze pierced deep within me. Just as he turned to go, I then saw a smile on his shining face. I sat bolt upright. I couldn't sleep after that. I tossed about for a while, going over the words in my mind. And then I got up and dressed quietly, so I wouldn't wake him. We're going to take a little break from the story and sing again together the first three verses of 323, the first Noel. Stars pricked the blackness like 1,000 tiny pinpoints, and a cold wind blew in my face. I sang to the Lord, Mum. Yes, I sang, if you can imagine that. I couldn't contain myself. I told him that I would care for Mary. I told him I would watch over her and the child, no matter what anyone said. I got back just as the light was breaking. Do you remember? You were feeding the chickens and surprised to see me out and about. Remember? Sit down, I said to you. I've got something to tell you. I took your arm and helped you find a seat on the big rock out back. Mum, I said, I'm going to bring Mary home as my wife. Can you help make a place for her things? You were silent a long time. You do know what you're saying, don't you, son? You said at last, your eyes filling up. Yes, Mum, I know. Your voice started to rise. If your father was still alive, he'd have some words for you. Going about like that before you were married, disgracing the family and all. You and Mary ought to be ashamed of yourselves. You'd never have believed me if I tried to explain, so I didn't. Unless God had spoken to you, you'd have laughed me out the house. Mum, this is the right thing to do, I said. And then I started talking to you as if I were the head of the household. When she comes, I don't want one word to her about it, I spluttered. She's your daughter-in-law. You'll respect her. She'll need your help if she's to bear the neighbours' wagging tongues. I'm sorry, Mum. You didn't deserve that outburst. You started to get up in a huff. Mum, I murmured, I need you. And you took my hand and got to your feet, but the fire was gone from your eyes. You can count on me, Joseph, you told me with a long hug. And you meant it. I never heard another word. No bride could hope for a better mother-in-law than you those next few months. Before I conclude the story, let's sing verses 4 to 6 of the first Noel.
I
Mum, after I left you, I went up the road to Mary's house and knocked. Her mother glared at me as she opened the door. Loudly, harshly, she called into the house, "It's Joseph!" Almost spitting my name out as she said it. Mary came out cringing, as if she were expecting trouble from me. Her eyes were red and puffy. I can just imagine what her parents had said. We walked a few steps from the house. She looked so young and afraid. "Pack your things, Mary," I told her gently. "I'm taking you home to be my wife." "Joseph!" She hugged me as tight as she could. I never realized she was quite so strong. I told her what I'd been planning. "We'll go to Rabbi Benazir's house this week and ask him to perform the ceremony." I know it was awfully sudden, Mum, but I figured the sooner we got married, the better it would be for her and me and ultimately the baby. "Mary," I said, "even if our friends don't come, at least you and I can pledge our love before God." And I paused. "I think my mum will be there. And maybe your friend Rebecca would come if her dad will let her. How about your parents?" I could feel Mary's tiny frame shuddering as she sobbed quietly. "Mary," I continued, I could feel myself speaking more boldly. "No matter what anyone says about you, I'm proud you're going to be my wife. I'm going to take care of you. And I've promised God I will do that." And she looked up. I lowered my voice and said, "I had a dream last night, Mary. One in which God spoke to me, just as he spoke to you." The anguish which had gripped her face vanished. She was radiant as we turned away from the house and began to walk up the hill together. Just then, her mother ran out into the yard. "Wait!" she called. She must have been listening behind the door. She must have been crying because tears were running down her cheeks. "I'll get your father, Mary," she called, almost giddy with emotion. "We," she cried as she gathered up her skirts. "We," she shouted as she began to run and find her husband. "We are going to have a wedding." And that's how it was, Mum. Thanks for being there for us. I'll write again soon. I wish we could come home, but we can't. Not now, anyway. Love, Joseph. Going to sing again in the hymn 331. "Unto us a child is born."
Unto
this service this morning, we can go home. And I was struck in that story by the fact that the holy couple wanted to go home. And there's a remarkable crossover, I think, between them and their desire to go home and what we've seen in the world around us, particularly lately with refugees and exiles and persecuted Christians being chased from where they want to be and their desire to go home. So as a short prelude before we have a word of prayer about people who are exiled and marginalised, Morna and Helen are going to read for us a piece which compares the Holy Family with a modern day family, two families, but with a similar experience.
Once there was a Palestinian couple. The man was a skilled professional. They weren't poor, but then they weren't again especially rich. They lived a comfortable life in a small village. Sadly, their lives weren't entirely under their own control. Palestine was under an occupying force called the Romans, who laid down the law.
Once there was a Syrian family. The man was a skilled professional. They weren't poor, but then again, they weren't especially rich. They lived a comfortable life in a small village. Sadly, their lives weren't entirely under their own control. Syria was a war-torn country. An occupying force called ISIS laid down the law.
For reasons of their own, the occupying force decided to count every member of the population across the empire, including the occupied lands. But rather than counting people where they lived, they forced every man to return with his family to the place where he was born. For this couple, it meant a journey to a town many miles away. They had to take to the road. Oh, and by the way, the woman was pregnant. Not 3 months pregnant, or even 6 months, but nearly 9 months. The last thing she needed was a long, uncomfortable journey.
For reasons of their own, the occupying force called ISIS imposed rules, meaning anyone who was a Christian had to leave immediately with nothing. For this couple, it meant a journey first to another town. They had to take to the road. Oh, and by the way, the family had a baby. The last thing they needed was a long, uncomfortable journey.
But when the occupying force says go, everyone has to go, including the sick, the disabled, and the pregnant.
But when the occupying force says go, everyone has to go, including families.
The roads were full, and progress was slow, especially because of the woman's condition. When the couple eventually reached the town where the count was to take place, all the accommodation had long since been taken. They were turned away many times by residents fed up with all the visitors. Finally, due to the kindness of one man, they were able to camp for the night with the animals behind his bed and breakfast.
The roads were full and progress was slow, especially because there were 3 of them. When the family eventually reached a place where they could be safe, all the accommodation had been taken. They were turned away many times by residents, fed up with all the visitors. Finally, due to the kindness of local people and others, they were able to camp for the night.
Maybe it was the jolting on the long journey. Maybe it was simply her time. But the woman went into labour that night and gave birth to their child, a boy. He was placed in a makeshift bed, a cattle trough, surrounded by the warmth of animals.
Maybe it was the length of the journey and the thought they had lost everything. But the family eventually fell asleep that night, along with hundreds of others like them, wondering what would happen to them.
So the baby had been born, but now the danger started. The local king had heard about this baby boy and was determined to get rid of him, because he had been told that he, too, was a king. The mother and father and the baby had to flee to the safety of another country, Egypt.
So the family awoke the next morning, but now the dangers started again. The people who had sent them away from home were coming again, so the family had to flee to the safety of another country.
Here, the family found safety and shelter for a while, but this was not their home, and they longed to return to their village.
Here, the family found safety and shelter for a while, but this was not their home, and they longed to return to their village.
And one day, they did return to their home village. The boy grew up and learned his father's trade. He went to school and grew strong and healthy.
But this other family were not able to return, and still they live in a new land. The son longs to go to school, perhaps to learn his father's trade, to grow strong and healthy.
Who are this family? The mother and father are called Mary and Joseph, and their son is called Jesus. He is the Son of God, and he grew up to serve his Father and bring freedom to us all. This boy from the Middle East, whose family were refugees for a while in a foreign land, has changed the world and is the reason that we're all here today.
Who are this family? We don't know their names, but there are many like them. They are followers of Jesus, and because they follow him, they are driven from their homes and persecuted. This family from the Middle East, refugees in a foreign land, long to return home, and they keep faith in Jesus.
God had a plan for this family, and we thank God this morning that we can worship his Son, Jesus Christ.
God has a plan for this other family, and they need our prayers this Christmas. That one day they may again be free to return to their home and worship Jesus Christ.
Thanks, guys. Let's have a brief word of prayer for those who long to go home, those who are marginalised, those who are displaced. Compassionate God, born at Christmas, make your presence felt to refugees and exiles, torn from home and family and everything that is familiar. Enter the hearts of the young and the old and the most vulnerable among them. Help them sense that you accompany them as you accompanied Jesus, Mary and Joseph in their exile. For Lord, no one is a stranger to you, ever. So may it be with us. Open our hearts to the plight of others, especially those displaced for whatever reason. Use us in whatever ways we are able to support the refugee, the exile, and the homeless, those separated from loved ones, youngsters who are lost, those who have run away or simply disappeared. Bring them back to the place they long to be, to school, to work, to the place they think of as home. And we also think this morning about those of our congregation who are ill and in hospital, and also wishing they could be at home. May they all be in a place of safety and peace, a place where they experience the kindness rather than the hostility of others. and may they know you, or come to know you, and be free to worship you in whatever place they call home. Amen. We're going to conclude our service this morning by singing hymn 301. I think it's the first time this Christmas season I've actually sung it, which is quite good. Hark the herald angels sing.
Until we meet again.
with your families and at home.
You too. You too.